Damo, good morning. How are you?
I'm fantastic, Ivan. Thanks, mate.
I'm looking at that background, mate. Can you just tell us where you are? And mate, I've kind of got something like that, but not as remote as that.
I'm down at my farm in the Southern Highlands, so I'm 2 hours door to door from Sydney to the farm, and I kind of float between Sydney and the farm. I need to be a little bit careful about how much I tell people I'm down the farm or how little I'm at the farm because people think that I don't work. But I managed to spend good quality time down at the farm, but I also managed to get all of my auctions done during the week and spend good time in Sydney. Our offices are in Double Bay, so it's nice to have both options.
Mate, you bet. No, I don't think you need to explain yourself to anyone about whether you're working or not, mate, because I'm very grateful of our friendship, Damo. We've been friends and colleagues and worked together for, mate, 25 years now.
Yep.
It's a long time.
Um, Absolutely. Well, when I started my business, 2003,
Mm.
Bresic Whitney were one of the very first clients that we had. And I obviously knew you prior to you guys starting Bresic Whitney because my
Mm.
time at McGrath, be it only a short time, I knew you're obviously selling there with Shannon.
Yeah.
Um, but that was an exciting time for me. And the way that the sliding doors moment of your auctioneer at the time leaving and actually taking a role at McGrath and me leaving McGrath and starting my own business
Yeah.
enabled me to win the Bresic Whitney work. So that was exciting time in my career.
Mate, and I reckon that it could be said that you're the best auctioneer in the world this century. I was thinking about it.
Thanks, Ivan. That's a big call, and I take the compliment.
Well, you think
Um,
it sounds a big call, but like Australia has the best auctioneers in the world because I'm in America. There's not really no auctions here. Maybe there's some fine art auctioneers around the world, sure. Property auctioneers, not many around the world. So then you go to Australia. I mean, I don't think it's a debate. I reckon the last 20 years you've been the number one auctioneer in Australia. So therefore you might have that. So it's a big call, but mate, you've deserved it. So I wouldn't feel guilty about being in the farm, mate, as much as you want. You've created that and you deserve that.
I had a journalist say to me one time, "Are you still auctioning?" And I was like, "Excuse me?" And they said, "Well, you just post so much on social media about being at the farm. I thought that you'd retired." And so I actually, for anyone who followed me on social or who does follow me on social, I actually wiped all my Instagram and Facebook. I just took everything off and I
Oh,
started again. So I started being a lot more strategic about what I put online. So it is an interesting concept though about perception
yeah,
of your life,
yeah,
and people do need to be mindful of that. It's certainly something that I'm a lot more mindful of these days.
yeah.
Putting in a balance or focusing more on the business side of social. And I mean, at the end of the day, Ivan, your good friends know you, your good friends know what you're doing, and you're talking on the phone to them all the time. So,
Yeah.
that's the best way to communicate with people, isn't it?
Yeah, I know, but it is a good point. Like, if you've got profile like you do, or I do, or a lot of the agents who I've interviewed here, there is a lot of scrutiny that comes with that. So you have to kind of, it's Australia. They're looking to take you down as well. Like they'll bring you up,
That's
they'll
true.
bring you down just as quick. So
Yeah.
you kind of, yeah, you do have to be careful. I want to go back, Damo, just before you started, we started Bresic in 2003 and you started doing our auctions. You went to Greg's, didn't you, in Campbelltown?
Yep. St. Greg's. Yep.
That's right. And then coming out of there, did you think you're going to be a real estate agent, a property manager, or did you actually hit the auctioneering thing straight away?
No, so I got 90.6, I think, in my HSC. I wanted to do a law degree. Dad was a lawyer, my brother was a lawyer. Um, so I wanted to follow that tradition, I suppose. I
Yeah.
didn't do well enough in my HSC to get into law, so I had to do an arts degree to transfer. I went to university for a week. I absolutely
Yeah.
hated it.
Yeah.
I'd never forget the conversation coming home and telling my dad that I was dropping out of university and I wanted to get into real estate. I'm sure he thought his investment, mum and dad's investment in my education,
Yeah.
all was going down the gurgler. But they couldn't have been prouder once my real estate career started and started doing really well. I remember I wrote a letter to the Anderson family who had a real estate agency called Elders Real Estate in Randwick, and I wrote a letter why they should employ me. And Robert Anderson came to me and he said, "Mate, I've read this letter. There's no role here for you, but I'm so impressed with your letter that we're going to find a role for you." So I was the assistant to the leasing clerk, and mate, that's where it all started. And very quickly, I was then in charge of leasing for the whole company. They had about 1,200 properties under management, so I was doing the leasing for the whole business, and then I was doing the leasing for the whole business, and I was managing. I think at the time I was managing 350 properties as a property manager. So
That was your first step. That was the
that was
first
my first step. Yeah,
from there,
property manager and leasing.
and then from there,
From there, I took a role at McGrath. I was only there for a very short time, and a lot of my friends were going overseas. They were going on the gap year program,
yeah,
and they would go and study overseas. And I kind of felt like if I was going to get into this whole auctioneering thing and I was going to make a career of it, I wanted to do something before I started working really, really solidly.
yes,
And I went jackarooing. I went jackarooing for 12 months, and I went and worked out on outback cattle
cattle farm,
stations.
yeah,
Yeah, and I went droving cattle, and it was just such an amazing experience. I was actually only thinking just the other day about moments in life that are memorable, and things that you've done in your life that have had a profound impact on the person that you are today.
yeah,
And going to boarding school and having that agricultural
background,
influence and meeting
yeah.
a lot of country boys and going jackarooing, that's had a profound impact on making me the person that I am today. No
Wow,
doubt.
that's awesome. So you go jackarooing at 1920 for 12 months, and then you
21 I was, yeah.
21, and then you came back. And if you'd done leasing and stuff, how did you end up doing the auctions? Because that would Scott Kennedy Green would have been the auctioneer at McGrath at the time.
Yes, yep. So I went in a novice auctioneers competition with the Real Estate Institute of New South Wales. I
Any
won that.
experience?
No experience, just watching auctioneers.
Yeah,
I used to watch Chris Maud, a guy called Peter Kennedy,
yeah,
and I used to watch mainly Peter Kennedy was the auctioneer at Elders at the time, and then Chris Maud started being the auctioneer for Elders at that time. And I
yeah.
was watching Chris and Pete Kennedy. I used to love watching the auctions. And I went in the competition, the regional final, I won it. And then I went in the state final and I won the state final. And Scott Kennedy Green was actually one of the judges in the state final. And then they recruited me to go and work at McGrath.
Gotcha.
So I was working at McGrath for, I can't remember exactly how long it was, but it wasn't a long time. Maybe I was there for 12 months. And then I went jackarooing. I came back, worked a little bit at McGrath, got sacked from McGrath, and then started my own business.
Oh,
Yeah.
good on you. Why did you get sacked, if you don't mind me
And
asking?
that's a story for another day, Ivan.
Okay, fair enough. Fair
No,
enough.
I'm
No,
only joking.
yeah,
Mate, look, I was young, bit naive,
yeah.
made a few mistakes in auctions. So, the rest is history. That was 2003, and I started my business in September 2003, which was actually kind of coincided when, for those agents might remember, when bidders registration actually just came in.
Yeah,
And we started registering bidders. And 2003 was my first year. I did like 392, I think, auctions.
yeah.
My second year was about 600 odd, 900 odd, and yeah, etc.
Yeah,
etc.
so by default, really, you get thrown out to have to start your own business by default to be uh, a you know a what is it like an auctioneer that you could do anyone's auctions other than McGrath at that point.
Yeah, an independent auctioneer. I was
Independent.
23 years old.
Yeah.
I mean,
What
hopefully I
were you
still look
charging?
young.
What were you charging back then? $400 or something.
It kind of ranged. Like I think an on-site auction back then was $495 from memory. I remember when I won Rain and Horn Double Bay's work. Now, Rain and Horn Double Bay at that time was Martin Maskin, Michael Pallier, and
Yeah,
Barry Goldman,
Barry Goldman.
the three agents. And I won their work, and I was charging $375 for an in-room auction. And I remember when I won their work and I had Bressic Whitney's work,
Yeah,
I remember thinking to myself, I got the best. I've got the best agency in the inner city, and they
yeah.
do lots of on-site auctions. And I've got the best agency in the eastern
Double Bay.
suburbs for
Yeah,
doing in-room auctions.
Yeah.
So see, for an auctioneer, there's only two ways that we can earn more money. That's if we charge more or if we do more auctions.
Yeah.
We're not incentivized based on the value of the property.
Correct.
So whether a property is worth 10 million or whether it's worth 1 million, we get paid exactly the same.
Yeah.
So we either have to charge more or do more. The way that we're able to do more auctions is in-room auctions. On-site auctions become, I guess, our bread and butter in the sense that, we a busy Saturday for us would be 10 to 13 on a
Yes.
Saturday,
Yes.
back to back.
Yes.
But like, for example, this week I have 52 auctions. Now, if I've got 12 on Saturday and I'm only a Saturday auctioneer, I'm only ever going to do 12 a week. I
Correct.
might do occasionally a few midweek on site, but my volume comes from, like, I've got 20 auctions tomorrow night in Double Bay.
Yes.
That's on Tuesday night, and that auction room that we've built in Double Bay, I believe, really has been the catalyst
Yeah.
for
A lot
a
of success.
significant profile
For
in the
sure.
East.
Because you've had a lot of real estate training there. It was always known as the Cooley auction room. There was no one else who really had it there until recently, maybe one or two others. Yeah, I agree. Mate, how did you get so good? Because, like, mate, I've worked as you know, I've worked with lots of auctioneers. We contracted auctioneers. We never had you full-time contracted. We fully employed auctioneers. How did you get so good? Because, mate, and
Yeah, well,
I
firstly,
think
thank you.
no pleasure. I think SKG was smooth. John McGrath was smooth years ago, but he stopped in the 90s. But you had this knack where, mate, if you had you as the auctioneer, you just had an advantage.
Hmm.
And so I was thinking about today, like how did you get so good? And maybe there's some auctioneers who are listening or people who want to become auctioneers. Is it a natural thing? Was it the cattle? Did the cattle farming help? How did you get
I think there's a few things. It's funny you say. I can hear my mum in the back of my head right now saying, you're going to be a great success one day, Damien. You from a very young age, I was always, I guess, quite likable. People, I got along really well with people.
yeah,
I had an outgoing personality, and I think all of those traits, also make a great agent. But they've really been the backbone for me for creating good quality relationships with real estate agents. I
yes,
think to be I think to be a successful auctioneer and successful in the auctioneering business
mm,
is, firstly, you have to be likable. You've got to have a great personality. You've got to be able to get on with people. You've got to be a bit of a chameleon,
yeah,
because there are a lot of different personalities in real estate agents.
yeah,
Some are louder than others. Some
or
have
introvert.
more ego than others,
Yeah,
and I have to adapt to the type of agent that I'm trying to win their work.
yeah,
So I am a bit of a chameleon, all things to all people. You can't be everything to everyone, but you try your best to be as much as you can. So I think that's a big part of it, being likable. I've
yes,
had incredible mentors over the years. Peter Etheridge, an auctioneer who taught me so much about how to be an auctioneer. Like, Pete taught me not just to be a property presenter, but how to or not be an audit taker. And by that I mean, not just accept bids that just come in, but actually go after bids, chase bids,
yeah,
tell guide bidders on where you are going to take them, not what they are going to give you. So Pete Etheridge has taught me a lot. Scott Kennedy Green taught me a lot about how to present and do well. Same as John McGrath.
yeah,
When I first started auctioning, I used to get in the car with John and Scott and go around and watch them do auctions. I learned a lot by doing the auctions for Bresic Whitney. Like, there's not many better negotiators who work an auction room floor than Ivan Bresic.
oh,
So
I
for
don't know
me,
about that.
for me, no, but I distinctly remember conversations of you having with buyers on how to get a buyer to increase their own bid, for example. The bidding stops in those days when we were selling, the bidding stopped at 820,000.
Yeah,
And, you would go up to them and you would say, look, we've got a reserve at 900. And the buyer would say, well, we'll pay 830. And you would say, well, they're not going to sell for that. And you'd get them to increase to 840 and 850. And we'd get two or three increased bids and then we'd sell it.
yeah,
Right. So I learned, I think a lot of things that I've learned, and what I think that people look at me now and say, what are some of the traits that Damien does differently to others?
mm,
I really try hard to get the best price every single time. And
Mm.
if I think a buyer is going to pay an extra 5 grand
Yeah.
or an extra $1,000 or an extra $10,000, I go after that 1,000, 5,000, $500. I don't, if I feel someone's going to pay more, I really try hard to get that. And sometimes that's me coaching the agent to do that during the auction. Sometimes it's me getting involved, not generally, but usually it's me giving the agent confidence to go and have that conversation also.
Yes.
Um, but there are some agents that I have no influence over or try and help at all. I just go there, I call the auction, and I get out of there.
Yes.
So I have different levels of influence over not influence, probably the wrong word, but I do things differently for different agents.
Yeah, I hear you.
So yeah, being likable,
So
trying really.
just on that agent thing, unless you want to finish, what are the qualities that have helped you
No,
succeed?
I think I I was pretty basic with how I did things. You mentioned when I first started, like I didn't have anything, so I
Mm.
didn't have any responsibility. All my responsibility was making sure that I got the rent paid.
Yes.
There was nothing else that I had to worry about. It's a very
Yeah.
different life I live now with 3 kids and mortgages and farms and all this stuff.
Business.
I've got a lot of
Yeah.
responsibility in business.
Yeah.
But back then, I didn't have anything, mate. It was a hot chip sandwich for lunch, and it was I had a laptop and I had the rent to pay.
Yes.
I'd write handwritten notes. I think we don't do enough of that stuff anymore. Making
Yeah.
phone calls, everything's become, don't talk to anyone, send text messages, and send an email and hope for the best. Well, that's not the way it is. So
Yeah.
I've been successful in business because I've built a great profile off
Mm.
the back of working tirelessly and speaking to journalists and building my media profile.
Yeah.
I've had great mentors and I've been likable. I think they're really the big key attributes that, if I sort of say now also, like, what are the key attributes of being a great agent? You've got to have be likable. People have to like to want to do business with you.
Yeah.
You've got to have a great process, the way you sell property,
Yeah.
and you've got to have a great profile. And they're
Yeah.
like the three key things.
Yeah, I think I would agree with you. Likable, hard work, discipline. You definitely, I don't know if, and I'm curious if it's natural skill. Like if I'm a young auctioneer, can I get really good, or is there a point that just me and my personality will get me to? Like you calling those numbers and having that, I
Yeah,
know you've done thousands of auctions, so you become more confident, but that ability to just roll off numbers with that projected voice, can auctioneers learn that, or
absolutely.
is it a bit of both?
Yep. I mean, I look at like Jake Moore, an auctioneer who works with us now. Like Jake hadn't called an auction before he started working with me,
Hmm.
and I trained Jake to get him to where he is today, and he has also naturally got himself to where he is today with my help and influence.
Sure.
But I think like time in the saddle.
Yeah.
Jake spent a lot of time with me in the car on Saturdays. He spent a lot of time sitting next to me, watching the auction, listening to how I call an auction. And
Yeah.
now he's one of the best auctioneers in the country.
It's nice.
This
He's
off the
basically
back
done
of
what you did 20 years ago when you tailed.
absolutely,
It's amazing
yep,
how it just passes down.
absolutely,
Yeah.
yep, and being a sponge and listening and listening to what works and maybe what doesn't, and do this and do that. Like he's absolutely an auctioneer of the future. He's already an auctioneer of today, but I look at where I was back then and look at where Jake is, at the similar sort of time.
Yeah.
And he's hot on my heels, no question about it. But I'm just thankful that we're working together.
Good on you, mate.
Otherwise,
Good
I'd be
on you.
worried he'd be taking all my bizzo.
No, mate. Well, he's always going to have you to thank because the impact you've had for him is you're now still talking about John McGrath and Scott, who in some ways have
Yeah,
been competitors for 20 years, but you still hold them in such high regard because they brought you in. Mate, I love that. But yeah, so just with agents, right? You go to an auction, how you must be able to see how skilled an agent is based on their
straight
summary,
away.
how many buyers, what they feel is going to happen, how confident they feel, how they execute. So, because I remember when we ran the business, we had 50 agents working with us, and I'd go to a lot of the auctions, and some I was like confident that this agent, whatever the agent said would happen, and I was like,
Yep.
they know what they're doing. And then other agents would say, we're going to have 4 register and then 2 register. It's going to get X and it falls like 100 grand short. And
Yep, yep.
so do you put that down to, with all your experience with agents, DC, do you put that down to just their skill set?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's their product knowledge, it's their skill set, it's their ability to speak to from a purchaser's point of view, for
Yeah.
example. They
Yeah.
need to be able to qualify that buyer. I think buyer qualification is easy in some respects if you do the hard work, but difficult in others. If you're not making the phone calls and asking the right questions,
Yeah.
you're not
Yeah.
going to qualify them.
Yeah.
So I'm exactly the same as you. I'll turn up to some auctions and with an agent, and I'll go, whatever this agent tells me is going to happen is actually going to how it's going to play out. And others, I'll know that this is going to be a disaster when we get there. And
Yeah.
I need to get there. I need to do the auction. I'm getting out of there as quickly as I can. Um,
Shit.
but most agents that I work with
Yeah.
have a good understanding of where their vendors are at, on price, what they will or won't sell the property for,
Yeah.
and a pretty good understanding of where the buyers are at on price. I think some agents that struggle with that, they just haven't qualified people well enough.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd agree with you. It's a skill thing. It's a qualification thing. Like the best agents are the best qualifiers. So they kind of,
Yep.
and have better conversations with
They
it.
cut to the chase, Ivan. They
Yeah,
don't,
they're just
there's no
bang,
fluff.
bang. This is what we've got to do.
Yep.
Yeah. Hey, how's the land? So you've been auctioneer now for 20 plus years. How's it changed as an auctioneer? If you can remember back then, you were saying you were 20, 21, 22, 23. Very, came into it like a rookie. But as an auctioneer, how's the landscape for auctioneers changed? I know how it's changed for agents with technology and it's more competitive and,
Yep.
the average age of agents is getting lesser and lesser. What's your sort of, how's it changed from
I
that?
think so. In order to be able to conduct an auction, you need to have a real estate agent's license. And to have a real estate agent's license, you then need the auctioneer accreditation, right? So it wasn't that long ago where you could actually get your license pretty quickly, and
Yeah.
you could get your class 1 or 2. I'm not up to speed with the whole training thing, but you can get your class level of license to be able to go and list and sell. Now it takes a bit longer, a couple of years before they'll actually give you a real estate license, and
Yes.
then to be able to do an auction. So that's actually a good thing, I think, for our auctioneering industry, because
Yeah.
we were literally having people almost walking off the street.
Yeah.
In 6 weeks, they've got a real estate license. They're calling auctions.
Yeah.
Probably one of my challenges is that I've trained and developed so many auctioneers, and they've left, and then they've become competitors.
Yes.
But that's a natural thing in business, I suppose.
Yes.
So that's been a challenge. The way that it's changed, I mean, I developed the online auction platform. At the time, I called it Auctioneer. I sold part of it to Realtair, and I retained shares in Realtair,
Yeah.
and that sold most recently. So that was exciting. I
Is it a
think
good, is that a good, was that successful? Like, is it a good model? Do you think it's got legs into the future?
I absolutely so for me, the digital side of the auction, I think that it has legs in the sense that they work really well with a live auction together.
Yeah.
There's nothing beats having a buyer on the phone and being able to talk to them. But if
Yes.
everyone's online, I think it works really well. I think
Do you think that's where it's going to go? Or do you think there'll always be on-site auctions, mate, in 10 years
oh,
from
look, I think you'd be naive to think that there's not going to have a big influence to the digital side of things.
now? Yeah.
But I'm still a very strong believer in personal contact,
Yeah.
and I'm still a strong believer in
Yeah.
I can influence a buyer to go
More.
from 2,330 to 2.4.
Yeah.
Whereas
The property.
if they got at the property or
Yeah.
in the room, if we're going 2,310, 2,320, 2,330, why would a buyer online go to 2.4?
Yeah.
But if I'm in front of them and I'm convinced them to go to 2.4, and I've done it plenty of times, I feel I have more influence over that buyer when I'm in front of them. And the speed, you spoke before about, that I'm different to a lot of auctioneers in I've got great voice projection.
Yeah.
I use my voice to speed things up, to be louder or softer, have different tones during the auction to get different results, what I want from a buyer.
Yeah.
So I use my voice to get what I want from those purchasers, and I can only do that when I'm in front of them,
Yeah, I hear.
and that's the passion that that's what I love about an auction is influencing buyers.
Yeah, you're saying that's the magic. So
That's the magic,
so
man.
if they can if that format continues, there's some magic in it. If you take that
Yeah.
away, it might be more efficient and people might be more comfortable in their office or at their holiday home or whatever, bidding for a property online. So I mean, we couldn't do this
I
now.
think,
I'm in Austin, Texas right now. You're in your farm.
yep,
So
yep,
technology is wonderful, but then you're right.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Yep. Ivan, I reckon the digital auction, I
mm,
actually think that that has a really great place for agents when they're going to sell prior to auction.
sure.
So, and no one really does it, I don't believe. When an agent's selling
You're
prior,
saying you're saying that if you're going to do something prior and there's multiple offers, why wouldn't you
yeah,
just
and
put
they
them
don't want to run
online?
the auction,
And you could
right?
put them on a virtual online thing.
Bang.
Yeah,
I think that I think it's got a great place for that. Or bring the auction. Well, we have a lot of agents that just bring the auction forward. But
sure.
the reality is some buyers that are making these pre-auction offers, they don't want to go into that auction environment. That's why they want to try and bring it to a head before the auction.
Yeah.
Um,
I've got quite a few more questions here, and I'm
let's
conscious
go.
you've got to get to Sydney. I know your career very well. You know how you've grown, how it's built, and the agent and agencies. I think the biggest sale, and correct me if I'm wrong, everyone's got this turning point in their career, which their profile I found, like I had Chris Nunn on this phone call the other day. He sold this warehouse about 7 years ago. That just opened up heaps of doors for him. Would you say, correct me if I'm wrong, that Lachlan Murdoch sale was the one that really took you to the next level?
That was a big sale, 23 million under the hammer. Reserve
See,
price was
I do
18
remember
million.
this, mate. See, I do
Yeah,
remember your career,
there
Damien.
you go.
23 million,
um,
Bellevue Hill, under the hammer.
yep,
Michael Collier was the agent. Is that right? Or Ben Collier?
that's correct. Absolutely. Michael Pallier was the agent.
There you go.
That was for Rain and Horn Double Bay in their offices on New South. I'll never forget that auction. Lachlan Murdoch actually was there in person. He bought it. There was a big lineup of people of names that were in that auction room in Rain and Horn's office. And I mean, Michael was and still is, the gun prestige
He is.
agent.
I
And
actually I interviewed him just the other. We had a conversation.
I'm really excited to hear that because Michael doesn't often do these interviews, but as agents go, he's got to be one of, if not the
For
best
sure.
agents in our industry, and a lot of his work goes unnoticed. So I'm really excited to hear that, and I look forward to
Mate, I
listening.
asked him that. I said, "Why don't you do more of this?" He goes, "I'm happy to. I just never get asked." I said, "You must." He goes, "No, I don't." And I
He's got
said,
to be one of the nicest blokes too.
nicest. And mate, he started early days with us McGrath. I asked him how many sales he had this year. He goes, and how much money he's made, like Tom. He goes, I have no idea. And I believe him. He goes, I have no idea. It's incredible. Anyway,
It
I'll
was
send,
good. So just to answer your question,
yeah,
yes, it was a pivotal moment in my career. But I
yeah,
also think from a profile point of view, when I first did the block, and that was in Manly,
yes,
and I
yes,
watched a video of that the other day, and far out, I was young. But that for me, the block has done wonders for my career.
yeah.
Um, I'm not looking forward. I probably won't go back on the show ever again. But I mean, never say never. But it'd be unlikely that I will because I feel like I've had a great run on the show and maybe not such a great run recently, but that did amazing things for my career, the block, and I'm forever grateful.
Yeah, you're right, actually. That was a big one for you. Um, Gav, like I've had a recorded conversation with Rubenstein, and Gav said that, mate, he said that the show that he did, $1 Million Listing, he said it was fantastic for his profile.
Yep.
Whereas a lot of
Yep.
people, I probably wouldn't have done it. Him and I have debated it, but he goes, mate, it was excellent. I get calls. There's trust. It's helped me get into the big doors. So
Yep.
interesting. Um,
I have people talk to me about Gav and Simon
see?
on that show all the time, and
Yeah,
and people who have seen me on the show.
yeah,
Um, you know, profile is does having a great profile and a big profile does wonders for your career
yeah. In our industry for sure.
in our
Um,
industry.
if an agent says they want to become an auction, like in Melbourne, a lot of the agents become auctioneers as well, right?
Yep.
I even did it for a little while, and I was a terrible auctioneer. But there was something as an agent where you're like, well, I wouldn't mind doing that and adding that to my arsenal. and
Yep.
why can't I? And I'll just call my own auctions. It's a pain in the ass, and I never recommend it anymore. When I say anymore, ever since I did it, I always said to agents, why do you want to do it? Like, let an auctioneer do it. But if an agent said to you, Damien, I want to be an agent because we make good money as agents, but I want to do
Yep.
my own auctions, what would your
Yep.
response and what would
Hello.
your opinion be?
Hello. Are you there? Hello. Beep, beep.
You're saying
um,
no way in hell.
no chance. What I
Yeah,
would say is don't waste your time. You're going to
yeah,
make more money as an
I
agent.
agree. I absolutely
um,
agree because I would do auctions for Bresic Whitney, which means
yeah.
that meant there was that like even though an auction was at 11:15, that you're right off
Yeah.
at because you got to drive there, muck around, call it, it's late, hang around after, then drive to the next one. That's an hour when you could have been meeting 30 buyers and sellers at two open.
100%.
It doesn't
Yeah.
make any sense.
You
And,
know,
and an average auction, and an average com back then when I was 30K, an average
yeah.
auction fee was 1,000. Like it didn't make sense.
Yeah. Yeah. Look, I agree with you.
Mm.
It's all about being dollar productive.
Yeah.
Spend time where you're most valuable.
Mm.
And for a real estate agent, prospecting, listing, negotiating, selling, they're the things that make money.
Yeah.
Calling an auction, unless you're doing volume, you're never going to get wealthy being an auctioneer.
Yeah.
Unless you're doing volume. And if you're doing volume, you can do really well for yourself.
Mm.
But you're always limited by how many auctions you do and what your fee you charge, what fee you charge.
Yeah. So my question, if someone said, say your son at 18, you've got three
Yep.
children. Say one of your sons said, Damien, no, I really love what you do. I want to become an auctioneer. What would you support that? Do you think it's a good career? You must.
I would say to them, unless you are the best in the industry, don't do it. So unless you're going to be the best in the industry, look, everyone's level
Different.
of success measures success differently.
Yes.
If you want to, I honestly believe in Sydney now, like you need, you really, if you want to have a family and go to good schools and you want to have a great lifestyle and you want to go on some nice holidays, mate, you need to be making $1 million a year.
Yeah.
You need to be making $1 million a year
Yeah.
to in your career to be able to have a mortgage and
I
be able to
agree.
pay down debt, etc. I
Yeah.
don't understand how people do it otherwise.
Yeah.
So to be able to get to that level, you need to be in the top echelon of the auctioneering
It is.
space.
So you're
Um,
saying auctioneers, yes, but be prepared. It's a long. How long would becoming a great auctioneer take from zero to the top, like that mountain?
so Jake's a great example of that.
Yeah.
I think God, if Jake will watch this, and I hope I don't get this wrong, but I think Jake's been with me for about 7 or 8 years,
Yeah.
and I think last year he did 1,000 auctions.
Yeah.
So that's when you're starting to get up towards those numbers. That's when you're starting, and I believe that's when you're starting to make it.
Yeah.
And you're starting to make it because the 1,000 can easily become 1,500,
Sure.
can become 2,000. You can
Yeah.
catapult yourself with more in-room auctions. You just need to
Yeah.
be getting those in-room auctions. So,
You
um,
know, with
you,
your pricing, like you said to me, you made a point before. You said if we sell something at 10 million or 1 million, we charge the same. Maybe you should have a tiered charging.
Ivan, can I
Here's
tell
some
you
coaching coming. I'm just thinking, like,
the people who own $5 and $10 million houses or $20 million, they're tighter than the people that own an $800,000 house, in my
crazy,
opinion, a lot of
crazy.
the time. Now, I always am amazed by these people who have, these
$10 million
big
fit. Yeah.
$10 million homes,
Yeah.
how they're not really that excited about spending a huge amount of money on marketing, or we're so private, we don't want to go to market. Mate, these people just need, to be honest, a lot of them need to get their heads out of their ass. They're not that important.
Yeah.
And really, you need to invest in a marketing campaign and
Yeah.
having the best of everything, whether it's whatever portal you're going on, the best agent, the best marketing, the best auctioneer. Why
Yeah.
would you want to leave any stone unturned?
Yeah.
You want to get the best result for your property. And it doesn't matter how long that takes or how short a time or longer time it takes.
Or if it
It's
costs.
about having the best.
Yeah, I'd agree. Couple of quick ones. 20 odd years you've been doing this. Is there a period? So are you 40, Dama?
44.
Okay, cool. You're young, I think 44.
Thanks.
Is there a period when you reflect on the last 20 years? is there a time that were more fun than others, or has the journey has it got more complex? Was it more fun in your early 20s, mid 20s, late 20s? Was it more, is there more fulfillment now because of your age and you can reflect and how do you answer
So
that?
I would say for me, when I first started, there was a lot of excitement. I never started with the end in mind in the sense that I never thought I'd be where I am today.
Yeah,
I really didn't.
yeah,
I started, as I said, in my home with a laptop, and I was keen to just do Saturday auctions, and I thought the idea of doing 10 auctions every Saturday and not much during the week was like, wow, how good is this?
mm,
Right. And as I started auctioning, I started realizing, gee, I can make a good career out of this if
mm,
I do these things.
yeah,
And I started achieving all these goals. I would say one of the most exciting times in my career,
yeah,
I, I think was, if I look back on it, probably like 2015 to 2020 was
yes,
like fabulous years.
yeah,
I was training for Ironmans. I did 2 Ironmans, multiple marathons. I started getting into ultra trail running.
yeah,
I had a great family, 3 beautiful kids,
yeah,
great wife. Like everything was fantastic.
mm,
I was working hard. I was doing a lot of auctions. Like I was doing big volume back then. I mean, back in 2015, Ivan, I did 2,364 auctions in one
wow,
year.
wow,
Um, and I was the fittest I ever was. I wasn't drinking that much back then. And I feel like for a few years, I was like, mate, I was on.
yeah,
And then I feel like became a bit of a train wreck
mm,
after that.
yeah,
Um, COVID hit. That was a terrible time in life.
mm,
Things changed after that. And, I would say the last few years have probably been the hardest in my life.
mm,
My separation with Pepe.
mm,
I've lost both my mum and dad
yeah,
in virtually a 12-month period where both parents
sorry,
died. And I think I have underestimated what emotional impact those three things have had on my life.
mm,
Um, and kids and being able to be a great dad and be a great father.
yes,
I've had to change a lot in the last couple of years. I've had to make significant changes to be a better dad,
yes,
be more present, be a
yes,
better father, and get through that hard time in my life. And I feel like only recently I'm starting to make really positive change for the future. And I'm 20 years as an auctioneer, but I feel like I'm back at day one. I
mm,
feel like I'm back at day one because I'm starting again.
yeah,
Um, like my career, I feel like I have a long career left in me. I
yes,
don't feel like I've got 5 years left. I I think pre-divorce and pre-parents passing away, I was ready to start downsizing my career. I wanted to kind of do a few less auctions, charge a bit more. I wanted to spend more time, with the family and on myself and have
yeah,
a great life. But that things have changed, and
yeah,
I'm not gonna think about that anymore. I'm just going to go, no, this is the new me, and
yeah,
now I need to make better change for myself. And mate, I'm ready. I feel excited about the next 10 years in my career.
yeah.
And I and
And
I'm
if
not
anyone
and I'm
knows,
not doing it. I'm doing it from a running start.
if anyone knows you like I do, I think, mate, um, you know, you were never going to be down for very long. Um, if you were down, and you're saying you were for a little while, which is fair enough with mum and dad's passing and going through a separation, but I think it's life. I found life just gets more complex as you get older because there's health, there's sickness, there's parents passing away, there's unfortunately for you and I, there's separations and divorces.
Yep.
That's life, and then you got to juggle
Yep.
that.
It is.
But I agree with you. I loved my 20s. Like when I reflect on it, like I'm 46 now. I love early day, like late McGrath days, early Bresic Whitney
Yep.
days, sell a lot, party a bit. No, didn't have to
Yep.
worry about anything like you said. Like it was carefree,
Yep.
and
Yep.
all
I
of a
know
sudden,
some.
dropouts
Yeah.
like us were making really good money and we could, do whatever we want.
Absolutely. I said to my daughter's had a couple of challenges recently, and I said to her, I go, babe, you know what? Some of the most successful people I know today weren't very good at school. and they've gone on to have amazing careers in life. And
Mm.
it's life is all about what you make of it, and don't take yourself too seriously. Put your head down, apply yourself, and it's discipline in life does wonders for people.
Yeah.
And it is about what you make of it. We're only here for a short time, so we've got to
Yeah.
make the most of it.
Yeah. Well, mate, hats off to you. I don't think there's a question who's been the best auctioneer this century. I don't think there's a question around that. And I know that from an agent's point of view, everyone, if they had an auctioneer to call on them, they want you. I know that. But hats off to you, mate. I reckon you're in a really good space, and I still think you've got, mate, 20 or 30 years left if you want it of performing at the top and enjoying it and being healthy and still spending time with your family. And I think when you get to our age, we now have a lot of wisdom. We've been through this, and like you've taught Jake, you've still got a great company, and you've got so much to offer. Dame, I want to end on one thing. You're a legend, mate. I'm looking forward to seeing you in a few weeks. If How's the market right now? I mean, we're speaking now on the 9th of September. How are you finding it
Yep.
out for I know you're a Sydney auctioneer, but what are you seeing out there at the moment, mate? If we could just finish on that.
Saturday just gone. I've got a couple of notes here that I made beforehand. We had 67% clearance rate on the weekend. We averaged 2.6 bidders at every auction. The eastern suburbs, 67% clearance also, actually, interestingly, but we only average one bidder at every auction. I feel like at the moment, and look, nothing's changed in real estate. Good houses always sell well. There's plenty of buyers for the right type of property. The B grade stock is still selling, but not selling as well as it was. And anything that's really kind of difficult, that's going to be difficult to sell, is difficult to sell.
Yeah.
Vendors need to be realistic on price. Nothing's changed from that point of view.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, Things are a lot more expensive today than what they used to be, Ivan.
Yeah.
So buyers are having more challenges around their ability to borrow money.
Yeah.
Markets are driven by confidence. I feel like people are feeling a bit better. The weather's getting a bit warmer in
Yeah.
Sydney now, so maybe things might start picking up a little bit. But there's a lot more property coming on the market also. I
Yes.
think if you're a good agent, you're strategic about what you're taking on and what you're not. You're gonna sell every single listing that you have. There might be a
Yeah.
couple you don't sell,
Yeah.
and you'll get them sold. It's just going to it's going to be a little bit harder to get a great result on every property.
Yeah.
But definitely the good ones are selling well, no question.
That's good to know, mate. Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, you can like even my top agents that I work with, they still had strong August, but they're just
Yes.
they're working hard to get the vendors in line. They're having hard, they're spending more time getting the right buyers guide. They definitely have
Yep.
less competition, and all of them
Ivan,
have a fairly big pipeline of listings coming. I think it might
yep.
be pretty tough the back end
Can
of
I
the
just say this? I think
year.
I think a lot of agents put too much focus on how's the market.
Yeah,
They put too much focus on what the market's doing and what is this happening and what's happening. At the end of the day, you've got a property that needs to be sold and you've got a buyer that wants to buy, and you've got to bring both of those people together.
yeah,
Our role is to do that and get the best price.
yeah,
So if an owner is buying and selling in the same market, it doesn't really matter how the market is. If they're upgrading or downsizing or what they're doing, it's about getting the right result in the shortest period of time for the best result for the owner. That's our role
yeah,
as a real estate agent and as an auctioneer. That's
yeah.
what we love.
Yeah, two markets, the outside, the one outside your head and the one inside your head.
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah, no, you're
Mate,
right.
the one inside your head can be quite compelling sometimes.
We've all been there. No, it's good, mate. Well, listen, I reckon, mate, thanks, mate. I appreciate our friendship. We've had such a long tenure together as friends and colleagues and in the same field. And, we've both built a big profile based on hard work and discipline, I think. So, mate, I'm really excited for your next phase of life. I think, mate, what you've gone through and the way that you've handled it and just, you look great now and you've got your health again, mate, there's no stopping you. I know what you like. So,
Thanks,
mate,
mate.
thanks for having this conversation with me and being so open and honest about that. You're a legend. I look forward to seeing you in a few weeks. And mate, keep going.
My pleasure. Thanks, mate. I
Yeah.
appreciate the time.
See you, DC. Thank you, mate.
Yeah, mate.
Catch you. Bye.
Bye.